Hello, loves. Today I have compiled quite a few good stories. Let's get started. Story: The government put a school for children with paranormal abilities deep in the mountains of Alaska. Something went horribly wrong. So basically, 5 to 6 months ago, my girlfriend cheated on me with my own boss. It was terrible and soon became the most embarrassing thing of my life. I worked at a supermarket, and with everyone's boring lives, it soon became the talk of everything and really made me struggle mentally. Key things I'll add before I explain why I took revenge out on him. My boss was in his mid-40s, married with children, and would boast about cheating on his wife to the work boys, with the way he would describe his main tactics as trauma bonding. My girlfriend had BPD and was easily manipulated and persuaded by him to receive fake promises and promise to faster promotion. We are both 20 to 21, so basically I set up a fake Facebook profile and acted on it for a week or two before I joined the local community page, doing post and responding to comments he was interacting with. I made it out like I was a newly single mom and new to the area. After 1 month, before getting his attention, I slid into his DMs and started messaging him and flirty with him. I already knew a lot about him in terms of hobbies, interest, and sporting teams, so I made everything easily relatable to form a strong, trusting connection. I had him hooked. I had him moved over to Snapchat and started catfishing him with photos from online. In exchange, he started sending me nude photos exposing it all. I saved them all in my chat and left them there to build that trust. I also let HM do the same to the photos I sent. After I had enough to ruin him late, I changed my username and name on both platforms to a younger female staff member who used to work at the shop and screenshotted everything. I saved over 20 photos of what he was sending me and lodged a complaint with HR for the company. I even faked a Gmail email to make the user more believable, and when they called me on the phone, I had a female friend take the phone so it sounded very legit. Work for a large company, so you have the option not to do it in person. I also sent the screenshots of our messages and sent the nude photos of him cheating and sent them to his wife, his mom, and his sister. I truly wanted to ruin this man. I wasn't done then. I printed a bunch of posters with "Best Chewbacca impersonation wins $100" with his phone number listed below. I couldn't imagine how many phone calls he would have received. Anyways, to date, I have been told he currently has been terminated from the job from people inside the shop, and that he is also judging off the conversation with his wife on FB. She has kicked him out. I do not feel one bit of guilt at all. Maybe I'm psychotic, but nothing can describe the pure hatred I have for that man. As for my ex, she tried to get back with me, but I have left her in the dark and I'm much happier without her. I won't be seeking any revenge on her. Story: Humans are weird. Gust incoming, came the distant shout from one of the humans down the massive canyon. GSTCK paused in her lecture and tucked her body close down to the lichen-covered rock she and her cluster of graduate students were perched on. The group fell silent as the ever-present canyon whined suddenly increased from its constant whispering to a brief roar. GSTCK felt the resulting pressure difference pushing her up and clung to the rock. It was highly unlikely that the wind would lift her mass, but she had to set a good example for her students. The cluster likewise twitched and the wind surged over their fuzzy heads. It finally died down, leaving their auditory membranes ringing with lingering vibrations. GSTCK was about to resume her measurements on the teal lichen that she was considering for domestication in their colonies in the roots above the canyon when one of her graduate students clicked an absently polite interrogation. "Yes, TSCSS?" GSTCK asked without really turning her attention away from the lichen. "What are the humans doing?" TSCSS asked, holding up a clarifier in the direction of the mammals in question plus. GSTCK fought down a massive shrug of annoyance. As she expected, every one of her graduate students was now turned to focus down the canyon towards the docks where the human submarines surfaced to their crews out for light and air. GSTCK didn't know what the humans were doing. She quite frankly didn't care what the humans were doing. Their researches into the mining potential of the canyons and caverns were no doubt productive for the colony and the system in general, but had no effect whatsoever on her own work. Still, the web-like all-encompassing curiosity of a fuzzy young grad student was something to be harnessed and trained, not suppressed. "What do you observe?" GSTCK asked without looking up from her sample. "The humans are gathering at the end of the wave-riding bridge," one stated, taking the clarifier and studying the situation. "They all look very excited," another offered. GSTCK was about to inquire how they determined excitement in a bipedal mammal, but another student interjected. "Their large motor movements are faster and shorter than usual," he said, "and their voices have risen in pitch and frequency." "It is only the dock crews," another clarified. "There are no subs docked at the moment. They are arranging themselves in some specific order. They are flexing their muscles. That means they are preparing for sudden movement, not bracing for impact." The wind bore. The careful observations broke down into chitterings of stress and excitement that finally soused in pulling GSTCK away from her work. She stalked over to the student holding the clarifier. "Do remember that these humans are trained professionals and will not stupidly endanger themselves," she reminded them as she took the device. There was an uneasy chitter of agreement as she studied the situation. The wind bore was indeed seeming to menace the humans on the dock. The high wind gusts in the canyon, coming on top of the steady, constant breeze, created a long series of tall wave crests that bore down the canyons. It was thanks to these unpredictable and powerful surges that the Trisk science teams had to limit themselves to these high ledges, far from the water's edge. The humans, sturdier and more endothermic, had simply built their docks to withstand the bore waves and trained to work around them. One of the modifications they had insisted was necessary was one wave-riding bridge from one dock to another. This bridge consisted of individual floats that were connected with cables and rested on the water's surface. The design did indeed negate much of the stress caused by the waves, but the design had always struck GSTCK as impractical. She could not conceive how the bipeds, always on the verge of falling over, could hope to use the bridge during the bore waves. It looked like she was about to get her answer. The humans were clustered at the end of the wave-riding bridge. Her students had described the situation well. The bore wave struck the end of the bridge and the structure began to undulate. With a resounding whoop from his massive lungs, the leading human rushed out onto the bridge. He made it nearly a quarter of the way across, before falling off into the cold waters of the canyon. Frantic chittering broke out from her students and GSTCK raised a griping appendage sternly to silence them. "How are the other humans reacting?" she demanded. There was a long pause as her students considered this question. "They are laughing," one observed. "Another human has already replaced him on the bridge." She fell into. None of the other humans are offering to aid them. The fallen ones appear to be laughing as well. They are swimming for the soft dock. The first humans is running back to the main cluster. They have formed a queue. Not all of the humans are participating. The cluster fell silent to mull over these observations, and GSTCK handed the clarifier back to its owner with a profoundly fatalistic shrug. Below them, human after human was hurtling themselves across the undulating wave-riding bridge in what appeared to be an utterly futile attempt to get across it. It was obvious that this was some bizarre form of play behavior. There was nothing at the other end of the bridge to tempt them, and their dinghy was conveniently docked beside the main cluster of humans. GSTCK knew very well that her own cluster of highly educated university graduates was not going to achieve anything more practical than processing this display of hubris and endothermy on the part of the humans. She might as well pack up her tools and return to her mobile office while they observed the cacophony on the docks. She had several grant proposals to write, and something productive might as well be accomplished. Story: The Pink Adoptee. It was lost. Although it had only gained consciousness some 12 minutes prior, it was certain that things were not going to plan. Damn, it thought, not entirely sure why it was so alarmed. It was hurtling toward the Earth on a comet made almost entirely out of zinc, although chemical makeup didn't really matter. Zinc, copper, lead, they were all just a means to an end. Thousands of miles below, a farmer looked up at the stars. It was a clear night, although the light pollution from the nearby industrial gristle manufacturing plant extinguished the majority of the celestial bodies orbiting above. The farmer stared up at the Little Dipper, as the big one was obscured by the soft, orange glow of the plant's hundreds of heating lamps. The farmer, rocking steadily in his rocking chair on the stoop of his two-story farmhouse, took a long, gluttonous sip of whiskey straight from the bottle. Welford's Best, the label read. The farmer hoped that one day Welford could learn to do better. A pendant slipped out of his half-open flannel shirt. Whiskey dribbled from his lips, soaking both the pendant and the crotch of his overalls. Shit. The farmer wiped the pendant on his coarse, unkempt beard, like a man rubbing a towel on his years unshaven pubic jungle. He winced as a hair caught in the pendant's chain and was plucked sharply from his chin. He opened the pendant, revealing two portraits on either side. One was of a woman, the farmer's wife. She had a stern expression that stood in stark contrast to her floral-printed dress. He had bought her that dress, more for him than her. She never thanked him for the present, which she obviously resented, but she wore it. That was enough. The other portrait was of a rosy-cheeked infant, not a year old. The soft pink blanket swaddling her tiny, fragile body betrayed her gender. A girl, the farmer's daughter. Looking at the portraits, the farmer felt not love, nor longing, nor any romantic feeling toward his lost family. He felt only pain, a burning in his chest and cheeks and eyes. He took another drink, and the bottle shone blue-green. That was weird, even for a man as inebriated as the farmer. The rosy-cheeked complexion of his daughter turned a sickly green in the light. He looked up to see a shooting star streaking across the sky, far larger than any he'd seen before. Probably some Chinese balloon burning itself to shit, the drunken farmer thought. He had heard about those on the fake news, but still kind of believed in them. This balloon was falling fast, faster than a balloon should be falling. It slowly, too slowly, dawned on him that this balloon was rocketing directly toward him. The burning ball of zinc buzzed the roof of his farmhouse, and for a second he was disappointed that it missed. All thoughts left his mind when he felt the ground shudder and heard the thunderous collision of the comet inseminating the earth. He jumped up, forgetting that his shotgun was lying in his lap like a fat, lazy cat. It clattered to the floor and fired buckshot into the wooden railings of his porch. They exploded in a hailstorm of splinters, but the farmer didn't give a shit about his porch. For the first time in years, the pain was gone from his heart, replaced by an anxious curiosity. The farmer picked up his smoking shotgun and tucked the stock into his armpit. The image of an injured Chinese soldier clawing his way out of the wreckage wormed its way nonsensically into the farmer's mind. Not on my farm, he thought. He was a patriot, God damn it, and no Chinese was invading his country on his watch. When he arrived at Ground Zero, he was again disappointed. He did not find a Chinese militant crawling toward him, half-charred with his skin sloughing off as he aimed a defective Chinese handgun at the farmer. Instead, he found a rock no bigger than a basketball, blue-green flames shining bright as zinc oxide fumes plumed upward. He raised his shotgun. He had walked over to the crash site with the intention of shooting something, and this glowing rock would just have to do. The shotgun wobbled in his hands, and he struggled to get the little meteor in his sights. Stay still, he told the rock, or the shotgun, or his hands. He wasn't really sure which. The rock twitched. The farmer released his finger grip on the trigger. It twitched again, more fiercely this time. The farmer watched, trying desperately to ignore the fear creeping into his gut. A hairline fracture crawled its way up the rock, and the thing suddenly split in two. A fog emerged from the broken meteor, rising up like the steam from a freshly microwaved White Castle burger. It stunk, and the farmer recoiled from the stench. It reminded him of the gristle plant. That damn gristle plant. His family used to own that land, way back when, and it was supposed to pass down to his daughter. He saw something in the meteor. Pink and slimy, oozing from the core. Gelatinous fingers pawed at the meteor as they pushed against its constricting walls. The farmer raised his gun again. Chunks of meteor fell away like broken eggshell, revealing it. A mass of pink jelly, its transparent body revealing a network of veins and nerves just below the surface. Two black masses in the center darted back and forth, taking in what little information it could from the low light surrounding. Unlike the farmer, it was grateful for the light pollution of the gristle plant. It gurgled and cooed like a shot fawn, a sound that repulsed the farmer. "What are you?" he thought. The coal-black masses inside the jelly blob locked onto the farmer's eyes. It looked down at the pendant dangling from his neck and saw the rosy-cheeked baby. It knew what it needed to do. Slowly, the jelly mass solidified into the shape of a human child, rosy-cheeked and fresh as a newborn. The farmer recognized it as Amy Lee, his long-lost daughter. He dropped the shotgun involuntarily. He fell to his knees and scooped the infant into his arms, pink slime dripping off its skin like the last few drops of a wet dog stool. He didn't mind, all he knew was that the pain was gone. His soul felt true relief for the first time in years, and he didn't dare question it. He held the infant to his face and drank in the warmth radiating off its skin. "He's cold," it thought. This was not what it had pictured, but figured this would have to do for now. Who knows, maybe they could learn to love each other. 10 years later. The farmer was making breakfast. 4 plump sausages and a half-dozen eggs sizzled on the cast iron. It sat at the table, although it had gone by the name of Amy for the last decade. It didn't like that name, but it never protested. The farmer was sensitive, and any divergence from what he expected from his adopted daughter was met with harsh rebuke. "She wouldn't do that," he would say with a bite. Still, being Amy was uncomfortable. It molded itself into her, making slight changes over the years to account for aging. The real Amy did not live past 8 months, so it had to take some creative liberties. "Breakfast is served," said the farmer. He plated the evenly divided meals and placed them at either end of a knobby oak table. It sat across from him as usual, staring down at the salt-crusted meat tubes before it. They tasted wrong, although it was unable to say exactly what should taste right. Human cuisine disgusted it, but food is fuel and it needed to survive. Feeling a particularly bitter resentment for the farmer today, it decided to flex its otherness. It opened its mouth to an impossible degree, impossible for humans, anyway. A tri-forked tongue unfurled from its mouth, striking a sausage and curling around it like a python after a successful hunt. The farmer slammed his fist on the table. "No, no. That's wrong," he chided. As the sausage disappeared down its gullet, the man pulled a small remote control from his grease-stained overall pocket. He pressed a button, and a sharp volt of electricity surged through the chains on faux Emily's left ankle. It was uncomfortable, but so was this planet. It was worth the pain for a moment of defiance. At first, there was no chain. It played the part of a cooing infant, and the farmer was happy. As it aged, its mobility improved. It could walk around the farmhouse, even outside. The farmer did not like this. He insisted it never leave the farm and, unsure of what dangers lied beyond, it obeyed. As the years went by, the farmer's grip grew tighter. Any reminder of its true being was met with harsh punishment. Slowly, it assimilated. It lived the life of a sheltered farm girl, but it desired more. It thought about others, more of its kind. Surely they were out there, searching for it. Eventually, the confinement grew maddening. It had tried to slip away in the night, but the farmer had secretly prepared for this inevitability. It was caught and the chain applied to its ankle, cutting into its skin. The wound was a constant source of pink, droopy goo that oozed in fresh spurts whenever it moved. It regurgitated the sausage onto the farmer's plate. Enraged, he flipped the table over and descended on it. "You ungrateful bitch," he screamed. "I've given you everything. I took you out of that mud hole and loved you like you were my own. I raised you, fed you, gave you clothes. Where do you get off disrespecting me? It stared at the farmer with dilated eyes. Choosing chaos over oppressive peace, it spat a phlegmy, salmon-pink globule of mucus in the center of the farmer's face. His eyes widened in shock, then shrunk in contempt. Without a word, he grabbed it by the hair and dragged it across the floor. It shrieked, an inhuman shriek that ruptured the farmer's eardrums. He didn't care. Blood dripped from his ears onto his Amy as he yanked it toward the door. Its foot caught on the chain as it grew taut. Pain shot through its leg up to its chest. Frustrated, the farmer pulled harder. Sinew strained, and its not-quite skin peeled at the edges of its shackle. Its screams took on a new form, a chunky gurgle of agony. The farmer twisted and pulled, finally putting his foot on its and pulling with immense strength. Rip, crack, the foot came off, shackles still tightly gripping the ankle. Its bloody stump weeped viscous pink. "Shut up, it'll grow back," he said, unprompted. "Ain't that right?" It could not stay silent, some genetic instinct drove it to scream and beg and claw toward freedom. Humans were strong, ape descendants with an unmatched capability for violence. Its only hope was to inspire pity, and that ship had sailed years ago. "You want to be a freak? You want to phone home," he mocked. "Here." The farmer had reached his destination, the meter-wide crater where he first found it a decade prior. Gripping the hair on the back of its head, he shoved its face in the dirt. "You want to go back where you came from now?" A wicked smile crossed his face as he cackled insanely. It attempted to push away from the ground, but its tender arms could not repel the force of the farmer. As the gravelly dirt pressed up against it, its face began to distort. The visage of a sweet farm girl melted into the ground, like a wax statue staring into a heat lamp. The pressure was turning its face into a thick soup. "You're not mine," the farmer cursed. He pressed harder. It screamed, the sounds vibrating through its gelatinous throat like a guitar lick heard from underwater. A blue-green shine fell over its face. The farmer's grotesque, demonic expression softened into one of anxious confusion. He looked up and saw a meteor zooming toward him. A weak gasp expelled from his lips as the meteor bolted overhead and impacted the farmhouse. Like a fertilizer bomb, the meteor exploded in a fiery mushroom of blue-green. Mounds of earth rose into the sky, as shards of wood ascended and then rained back to the ground. It watched in awe. The farmer released it no, he screamed as he raced toward the ruins of his life. It slowly rose to its foot. Its bloody stump had congealed and morphed into something roughly equivalent to a hoof, flat-soled and stable. It limped unevenly in the farmer's wake, toward the flames. The farmer fell to his knees, choking on his despair. Words would not come, but the pain had returned, that feeling that all is lost. As the dust settled, both it and the farmer could see a writhing pink mass at ground zero. It was big, much larger than it had been when it first arrived on this shithole planet. The blue-green light of the flames shimmered through its pink, translucent body. It, formerly Emily, had never seen anything so beautiful. The tumorous mass heaved toward the farmer. He thought about his wife, his daughter. He knew now how ashamed they would be at what he had become. He looked back at it, his adopted daughter. It could see remorse in his eyes, but it did not forgive him. It wasn't sure that it ever could. The lumbering mass passed over the farmer, consuming him. It watched as digestive enzymes churned in the shapeless blob. The farmer's skin bubbled, like hydrogen peroxide on an open wound. His mouth contorted in a silent scream as his lungs filled with the alien acid. In moments, all that was left were the indigestible bits, clothing, and hair. The organism rolled slowly toward it, leaving the goo-soaked waste of the farmer in its wake. It stopped just a foot shy of the smaller being, the ghostly, half-melted and mutilated specter of Amy Lee. It recognized this as an invitation. It approached the mother mass and pressed its hand to the gummy figure. The hand melted and fused with the being, and it felt good. A wave of relief pulsed through its body, and soon its entire being was assimilated. Only then did it realize that its savior was not one being, but multitudes all living together in one shapeless body. It was a family, it's family. Story, my girlfriend took me on vacation to cheat on me. My 33-year-old girlfriend, 31-year-old, let's call her Rose, said she'd been wanting to take a trip to Colorado to visit her aunt. The last time we saw her aunt was 2 years prior when she came over for her birthday to surprise Rose. Her aunt is like a second mother to her, but had to move away with her husband for work 5-ish years ago. We plan the trip, I buy the tickets, book the hotel, and fast forward to 2 days ago we're in Colorado. We settled in at the hotel, visited her aunt, went out to eat, came back, slept, and yesterday went over there again. After coming back to the hotel yesterday, Rose tells me she wants to go back to her aunt's to sleep over her house. I thought that was kind of odd since we're visiting here for about a week and still have a lot of time to see her, and we have to Uber to her aunt's house. But I didn't think much of it and figured she just wanted to spend as much time with her as possible. She leaves in an hour or so later. I text her to see what she's doing because she never let me know when she got to her aunt's house, which is about a half hour away. She doesn't answer the text and doesn't answer my call, and I start to get a little worried, so I call her aunt and ask if Rose is there. Aunt said she's not, and, while telling her that she should have been there by now, Rose texts me saying she's in the living room watching TV with her aunt. Now, 2 thoughts are in my mind: Rose lied to me and she's somewhere else, or something bad might have happened to her and she's not the one texting me. I told her aunt I'd call her right back and called Rose. Rose picks up and says she's in the bathroom and she'd call me right back, and before I get to say anything, she hangs up. At this point, my heart is in my stomach, my palms are sweating, and I'm freaking out thinking there's no way she's cheating on me with someone. I've had this weird vibe from her lately, like she hasn't been acting totally like herself, and she's done some questionable things when we first got together, but nothing this crazy. I knew her aunt would be worried since I was asking where she was, so I called her aunt back and lied, saying that she entered the wrong address and decided to just Uber back to the hotel, and we'd see her aunt tomorrow. I'd try to call Rose and text her for like 2 hours straight to see what she's doing, but she doesn't answer. I didn't know what to do and just started walking all around town, chain-smoking cigarettes, waiting for a text or a call. I finally go back to the hotel, knock out on the bed after staying up for a little longer trying to call again, and then wake up this morning to her walking into the hotel room. I jump out of bed and say, "What were you doing? I tried to text and call you for hours and you didn't pick up or answer anything?" She says she's sorry, that she fell asleep with her phone on mute, charging in her aunt's bathroom, and then walks to the bathroom in her hotel to brush her teeth. At this point, I'm furious because I know she's lying, and I was thinking of a million ways to react. When she walks out of the bathroom, I just blurt out, "I called your aunt yesterday and she said you weren't there as you texted me saying you were there. Where were you?" She freezes, her eyes open wide, and she just starts crying. I already figured she cheated on me, but her reaction just confirmed it for sure. I said, "Oh my God, you really cheated on me? You brought me on vacation to cheat on me? Where did you go? Who were you cheating on me with? Did you know them this whole time? Was your aunt just an excuse to come here?" The entire time I'm asking questions, she's ignoring everything and just repeats, "I'm sorry," while crying. She stops crying and tells me she has been talking to this guy she met through Instagram and thought she'd go and spend time with him while she was here. She was trying to tell me that she didn't do anything, and they just talked and hung out but knew I wouldn't be okay with it, so she lied and said she was going to her aunt's. I respond saying, "Are you serious? You lying to me again? You really expect me to believe that? You were literally just crying because you're guilty," and she starts crying again. She finally says she did really meet the guy through Instagram, that he makes custom jewelry, and at first, she was interested in a ring, but it turned into them talking, and they've been planning to meet since I first booked the flight and hotel. She said they had sex, and as soon as she woke up this morning, she felt disgusting and rushed back to the hotel. She kept apologizing to me and saying she'd do anything to fix this. I said nothing, just walked out, took an Uber to another hotel, and I've been sitting in the room bawling my eyes out, wondering where to go from here. The flight back isn't for another 3 days, and I don't know how I'm supposed to sit next to her on the plane. I feel sick to my stomach and lost. Story, you and your 3 closest friends who you've worked alongside with since Nam breakdown and somehow attract zomboids. So basically 5 to 6 months ago my girlfriend cheated on me with my own boss. It was terrible and soon became the most embarrassing thing of my life. I worked at a supermarket and with everyone's boring lives it soon became the talk of everything and really made me struggle mentally. Key things I'll add before I explain why I took revenge out on him. My boss was in his mid-40s, married with children and would boast about cheating on his wife to the workboys, with the way he would describe his main tactics as trauma bonding. My girlfriend had BPD and was easily manipulated and persuaded by him to receive fake promises and promise to faster promotion. We are both 20 to 21, so basically I set up a fake Facebook profile and acted on it for a week or two before I joined the local community page, doing post and responding to comments he was interacting with. I made it out like I was a newly single mom and new to the area. After 1 month, before getting his attention, I slid into his DMs and started messaging him and flirty with him. I already knew a lot about him in terms of hobbies, interest and sporting teams, so I made everything easily relatable to form a strong trusting connection. I had him hooked. I had him moved over to Snapchat and started catfishing him with photos from online. In exchange he started sending me nude photos exposing it all. I saved them all in my chat and left them there to build that trust. I also let HM do the same to the photos I sent. After I had enough to ruin him late, I changed my username and name on both platforms to a younger female staff member who used to work at the shop and screenshotted everything. I saved over 20 photos of what he was sending me and lodged a complaint with HR for the company. I even faked a Gmail email to make the user more believable, and when they called me on the phone, I had a female friend take the phone so it sounded very legit. Work for a large company, so you have the option not to do it in person. I also sent the screenshots of our messages and sent the nude photos of him cheating and sent them to his wife, his mom and his sister. I truly wanted to ruin this man. I wasn't done then. I printed a bunch of posters with "Best Chewbacca impersonation wins $100" with his phone number listed below. I couldn't imagine how many phone calls he would have received. Anyways, to date, I have been told he currently has been terminated from the job from people inside the shop, and that he is also judging off the conversation with his wife on FB. She has kicked him out. I do not feel one bit of guilt at all. Maybe I'm psychotic, but nothing can describe the pure hatred I have for that man. As for my ex, she tried to get back with me, but I have left her in the dark and I'm much happier without her. I won't be seeking any revenge on her. Story, Jezebel. In a distant land, nestled within a serene and picturesque valley, there existed a charming hamlet called Jezebel. With a population of no more than 50 inhabitants, this idyllic settlement remained concealed from the outside world by towering mountains on either side. The rolling meadows surrounding Jezebel were adorned with an endless array of enchanting flowers that seemed to be forever in bloom, thanks to a mystical enchantment. This enchantment was created specifically for the hundreds of Jezebel butterflies that fluttered gracefully around the town, bestowing it with its enchanting name. As I made my way towards Jezebel, I followed the solitary road that originates deep within the mountain ranges forming the valley. Finding this hidden path was no easy task, as it is safeguarded by a mystical seal to ward off unwelcome gazes. Fortunately, I was guided to its location. During my journey to the town, I was captivated by the sight of butterflies gracefully flitting around me, pausing every now and then to alight on blossoms and sip nectar. The gentle fragrance of flowers carried by the breeze filled the air, creating a tranquil atmosphere. Apart from the occasional chirping of birds and the rustling of plants, there was very little sound. The most distinct noise was the rhythmic sound of thumpers' hooves striking the earth, echoing through the serene surroundings. As I approached the town of Jezebel, the fading light of the setting sun painted the buildings in a warm, comforting glow, creating a picturesque scene. Riding Thumper, I made my way past several structures before finally arriving at a quaint tavern situated on the town's periphery. The name of the establishment, Summer's Embrace, was prominently displayed on a sign that gently swayed above the inviting entrance. As the sun gradually descended toward the horizon, an extraordinary phenomenon unfolded before the town's eyes. The flowers that adorned the outskirts of the town started emitting a soothing, ethereal blue light, casting an enchanting glow all around. As the graceful butterflies delicately sipped the luminescent nectar from the flowers, they too became adorned with a captivating blue radiance, creating a mesmerizing and magical scene. As the sun began to set, a delicate and mesmerizing dance of butterflies unfolded, painting the town in a vibrant and enchanting glow. The graceful creatures fluttered through the streets, casting a warm and ethereal light upon the cobblestones. The townspeople emerged from their homes, carefully capturing the butterflies in glass jars and delicate nets, to bring their luminescent beauty indoors to illuminate their homes for the evening. Despite the breathtaking spectacle before them, the residents of the town appeared nonchalant, as if such a wondrous display was simply a routine part of their everyday lives. The overnight transformation of Jezebel into a spectacle is attributed to a long-ago sacrifice. Earlier, there were flower fields around Jezebel, but they lacked the enchanting quality, and the butterflies did not dance on the breeze as they do now. The transformation occurred during a goblin invasion when a young girl named Jezebel, faced with imminent danger, uttered a prayer for the protection of the town. Miraculously, her plea was answered, and as a goblin's sword struck her, it transformed into a burst of butterflies, and the flowers around the town bloomed in a spectacular display. This event not only saved the town but also instilled fear in the goblins, who then began to see the girl as a witch. Story: What do I do? I am now 22, and it's something that I have only told a select few people as I know no one would believe me, but what the hell, I don't even care anymore, I just finally want to get it off my chest. When I was 17, a day before turning 18, I got pretty drunk as I was celebrating over the phone with my friend at the time, since this was during COVID. Anyways, my living situation was pretty weird as my parents left to live in another country when I was 14 and I decided to stay in the US to finish high school, so I bounced around many places living with friends. I did live with my girlfriend at the time and her family for 2 years, but once we broke up I moved out and I came to live with a family who resembled mine a lot. Hispanic, loving, 3 sisters, and 1 brother that resembled my siblings who left the country as well, not only in appearance but in how they acted, so I came to love them as my own family to the point I called them my siblings and their mother. I called my mom as she was exactly like my mom in every way. She was more outspoken and very tough with love and protecting her kids. This was the end of my sophomore year, and from there to my senior year they were my family. I knew they weren't really my family because of blood, but they saw me as if their mom birthed me and that we truly were family. The mom, let's call her Maria. Well, Maria never treated me different on many occasions. Her and I would have son and mom days to go out, and she would hug me when I would cry, as I did miss my real family, and she just showed me love and support in any and every way possible. I say this because for a while during COVID it was just her, my little stepsister, Vivi, 10 years old, and her older daughter, let's call her Michelle, and I. Well, we all 4 got super close during this time, like inseparable basically, and this made me even swear they really were my family. Maria had another daughter who was my best friend in high school, Jasmine, 18F, before I moved in with them, but she lived in another city after high school but was my age, so she would come to visit on occasion, and to show how close I had gotten to her family, I got even closer to her bigger sister than her. Anyways, one day all of us were at home except Maria, 45F, it was just Vivi, 10F, Jasmine, 18F, Michelle, 24F, and I doing our own thing. I was drinking in my room on FaceTime when I remembered just being pretty drunk and the rest of the night not really comprehending much of my surroundings. But since I was home I felt safe as we would all drink together from time to time. Well, anyways, from there I just remember at midnight, now my birthday, so I'm now 18. I open my eyes around like 1 to 2 a.m. and I'm lying on the couch with my stepmom beside me, passed out. I just embrace her as again I saw her as my mom. It's important to state that all my friends said how hot and gorgeous my stepmom was and that they would jump on her at any given chance, but not me. Yes, she was beautiful, but she was my motherly figure and someone I saw as only my safe place and my loving stepmother who always was there for me at my lowest and to cheer me up at my highest. I never saw her as my friends would. I go back to sleep still drunk and like 30 minutes later, I wake up to someone grabbing my private part, and when I say I was still drunk, but the second I felt that they grabbed and started pumping my private area, I became completely sober because who the hell is touching me? I open my eyes, although it's dark there is only enough light to see who it is, and it's my stepmom. Now when I saw that it was her, I just immediately kept saying in my head, no, this can't be true, I must be sleeping, this is not happening. I just repeated it over and over again thinking it was just a dream. To make matters worse, I know people would say, why didn't you stop it, or tell her something, or get up, but mind you, she was an amazing mom, but when she drank it was her way or no way. Also, the only people in the house were her daughters and I was the non-family member when it came down to the truth. If I did say she started it and she said it was a lie, or that I was the one who sexually assaulted her, would they believe? Their loving mother, whom they've known their whole lives, or a kid who they've only known for a few years and don't truly know him 100%. Anyways, back to the story. That's why I decided to just close my eyes and not to do anything but just act like I was asleep. As she kept going on with my meet up and down, she grabbed my hand and put it in her pants and forcibly made my fingers go inside her. And when I say forcibly, it was because I made my whole body go limp, so I still remember how she grabbed my fingers and put them in with hers in her kitty. And she just went to town with my body and my fingers in her, and the whole time I'm super sober now and I'm just internally crying and praying to God to make this go away. When I just black out, I do not remember anything after that. I don't know if she ended up having sex with my body or not, but I was completely drained, balls and all, when I woke up and still dreading to accept the fact that what happened last night was real. I saw to my horror that my mom was still laying beside me on the couch with my hand in her pants, and I pulled it put slowly as to not wake her, and like 5 minutes after she got out of the couch and went to go lay down in her room. I was completely horrified, especially because I used to always say men can't be aped or assaulted sexually because they'll love it regardless of the situation. Plus, during my high school and after years, I was extremely addicted to having sex every day, but this grossed me out, disgusted me, horrified me, and made me see her in a different light. To me, it was like my own mom had just took advantage of me. To this day, that family doesn't know of their mother's own doing to ruin what I thought was my family, and I had to make it seem like I turned into an asshole one day and had to do them dirty, and the whole time it broke my heart to leave my little baby sister, whom I helped with homework, school, watched scary and funny movies with, taught multiplication and made breakfast together every day, as I just left one day out of the blue, and to this day I never could tell her. And especially my best friend Jasmine from high school, who introduced me to her family, who was her daughter, as after I was assaulted. I didn't leave right away, but instead like 1 year after, because I had nowhere else to go, and during that time we became boyfriend and girlfriend in everything but name, because her mother would have killed me had she known. We ended up liking each other and becoming intimate, as she told me she would go to prison if I got with her daughter. To this day, I remember how Jasmine called me with so much hatred when I left, and I couldn't bear to tell her why, as I didn't want her mom to go to jail for my little sister's sake and for her sake, and because they would never believe me, as their mother was always seen as such an example and would never be capable of such a thing. It has now been 4 years, and it still kills me that I made them see how I was the bad guy only to not tell them the truth. I now live in a different country and wish every day to tell them, not for reconciliation, but to finally get it off my chest, but I know they will ask why I waited so long to tell them, or why am I stooping so low to lie about something that's serious that couldn't have possibly happened. I guess mostly what hurts, and I haven't ever told anyone this, is that Jasmine and I were becoming serious and almost were going to tell her mom, and now Jasmine is pregnant and with someone whom I can only think was my replacement, as I just left her heartbroken and alone, and it may as well probably could have been my kid she was going to have. Story: Escape from Little Rock. I unlocked the door that had once been mine. My best bud Lynn now shared the space with another roommate, Frida. Lynn and I had plans to move back in together soon, prompting me to take on a second part-time job to save up. During Christmas break, Lynn and Frida generously offered me their apartment while they visited family. I would visit my parents and brothers for a couple of days, but could and would only tolerate my domineering mother in short spurts. Lynn and I had just completed our first semester of junior year in college. Frida, a freshman, had moved in with Lynn while I spent a semester at a school in my hometown. As I opened Lynn and Frida's door, I was startled to find John lurking in the dark. He was a bartender who'd been quite taken with me at my new part-time job. We worked at a restaurant, bar, and pool hall called Smitty's. On my first night, after Smitty's shut down at 3 in the morning, we went to an all-night diner with a group of my new coworkers and watched the sun come up together on Thanksgiving morning. Then I took a nap and drove 2 hours to my parents' house for a holiday dinner. But that night in December, John seized my neck with his massive hands and slammed me against the wall. He towered over me by 9 inches, and I'm 5 feet 7 inches. "I could kill you right now with my bare hands," he hissed, his jaw clenched. "No one would ever know. Nobody even knows I'm here. I didn't see your car in the parking lot. I caught a ride over and slipped in while the black girl was packing," he boasted. Struggling to breathe, I placed my hands atop his. "Frida probably had no idea you were here." "Who's the guy you took to the work Christmas party?" he demanded to know. "And where've you been since it ended 3 hours ago?" "Fucking him?" He loosened his grip, allowing me to respond. I gasped for air. "I couldn't find you," I replied in a hoarse whisper, though I hadn't looked. He let me go and grabbed his head with both hands. Light from a street lamp helped my eyes adjust while revealing dark circles under his. "I took a friend," I said. "He's my manager at my other part-time job, at the yogurt shop." John glared at me. "We're just friends," I swore. "And I'm done working at the bar. I was just earning extra money for moving and Christmas. All for naught because you robbed me." "What did you do after the party?" "We rented a movie, Soul Man." "Have you seen it?" I stepped away from the wall and turned on a light. "You should rest in Lynn's room while I shower off the smoke smell from the bar." "And you'll join me?" he asked. I nodded, lying. He stumbled back to Lynn's room as I locked myself in the bathroom, examining my neck in the mirror. I emerged from the shower to find him in a deep sleep. Careful not to wake him, I stuffed clothes in a bag and slipped out, feeling dizzy. It was Sunday night, December 20th, 1992. The air was cold, and my hair dripping wet. Once inside my locked car, I breathed a sigh of relief. "I'd go back over to your place, Brett, but I don't want you to know about this, it's embarrassing." I drove to Lee's apartment, knowing he'd let me in. We had a history and a close friendship, and he'd been asking about trying again. He would soon turn 31 and was thinking about settling down. He was a recovering cocaine addict and a not-sober alcoholic. "Hey, baby, what's going on?" asked my 30-year-old former lover. A transplant to Little Rock, he spoke in a thick Baltimore accent, yawning and rubbing his eyes. I think I'm at least mildly concussed." I whispered hoarsely, "and I need a safe place to crash for the night if you don't mind." I clung to my bruised neck. Lee pulled my hand away. "Who hurt you?" he asked, alarmed. "He didn't force himself on me like you did when in the same state, a year and a half ago. The man who strangled me tonight is a jealous, 6 feet 4 inches bartender at Smitty's. He's coming down from maybe a 2-day coke high." Lee grabbed a pillow and blanket from a closet and threw them onto his couch. "You mean a bartender you're fucking, because, guess what, blew it, men you aren't fucking don't tend to fly into jealous rages." I sighed. "He can't find me here. I know you get up early. Can we argue tomorrow? I thought we were making headway on starting over, baby. Didn't we have a nice lunch the other day? How long have you been seeing this guy?" I thought about it for a moment. 3.5 weeks? I kicked off my shoes and made myself comfortable on the couch. Speaking was painful, but I continued, still in a whisper. "His name is John. A few nights ago, he stopped by while I was out and stole my stash of tips and some inexpensive jewelry." I rubbed the back of my head where John had slammed me against the wall. I didn't think he would show up again after he stole from me. And I planned to be done with Smitty's and everyone there after tonight. Lee handed me a glass of water. When I told John it wasn't working out, he cried, "Lee, even though we'd only known each other a couple weeks." So, I promised we could still attend the Smitty's employee Christmas party together. Smitty's is closed on Sundays. We were looking forward to having the whole bar and pool hall to ourselves for the party tonight. I took my bra off under my shirt and curled up on the couch. This morning, the owner of the bar called me looking for John because he hadn't shown up for work Saturday night. I assumed he was still someplace getting high with my tips he took, and so I invited Brett to the party. And somebody told John. Yes, Brett, your neighbor who gave me a job. I worked with him at the yogurt store today. I wonder how many people realize the scent of waffle cones makes people happy. John is a coke addict? Lee asked. Yeah, when I saw how much cocaine was in his apartment, I told him things weren't gonna work out, and I couldn't get out of his place fast enough. He and his roommates had a huge stash, and people buying from them were lined up from the coffee table out a kitchen side door down an alley. Lee lit a cigarette. If you wanted to be with a cocaine addict, you could have come back to me, a clean one. Do you want me to go, Lee? I sat up and reached for my shoes. Technically, I live with Allura and her mom Linda until the end of the month. I ran fingers through my hair. I didn't want to wake Linda by coming in so late. She works early, too. I wiped away a tear. And this whole situation is humiliating. Plus, John's been to Allura's and can find me there. I don't want to put Allura and Linda at risk. I drank my water. Fine. We'll talk tomorrow. Lee stomped back to his room and slammed his door. The next morning, I awoke to the sound and scent of sizzling bacon. I'm sorry about last night, Lee said. He handed me a plate. I'm glad you came to me. I just wish you hadn't fucked him is all. He found my keys in my things and put them in his jacket pocket. I can't get through my day worried about you going back over there. If you need anything, we'll go together later, okay? I nodded. He examined my neck. Are you sure you're all right? I squeezed his hand. He kissed my forehead. Thanks for covering my $50 bar tab the other day. I found my wallet back at the office. I nodded. I'm 6 months off the hard stuff, baby. He headed out the door. 30 years ago, I married Brett. Story, The Phase, a story about infidelity. I have suspected that my father had been cheating on my mom for a while now, and so did my mom. She didn't want to waste her time catching my father, so I decided to take matters into my own hands. I recently got a new phone, and my old one still has service on it, so I downloaded Life 360 on both of my phones so they can track each other. Before going to the mall, I charged and planted the phone. We left the mall, and my father was eager to go do Uber Eats. He dropped us off at home and left the house immediately. I tracked his car to an apartment complex, Harlow Spring Cypress. I told my mom immediately, and we called him to see his reaction. He left the apartment complex, drove to the freeway, and picked up the phone. He told us he was working and didn't want to be bothered. He yelled at my mom for calling him, and she hung up. After the call, he went right back to the apartment complex. My mom and I called my aunt and uncle, and they said they were on the way to our house. My aunt, uncle, and cousin came to our home. My sister, Chloe, was oblivious to all of this, so my mom and I told her that mom would get drinks with her siblings. I added my aunt to my Life 360 circle so I could track my family's location and my dad's at the same time. My aunt and I tracked my father and saw that he was in downtown Houston. My father headed back to the Woodlands, and my mom, aunt, and uncle followed them. My father stopped at Kat's Deli and picked up an order. My aunt called the restaurant pretending to be his wife and asked if he had placed and picked up an order, and he did. My father went back to the apartment complex, and my family followed them. My family arrived too late to see my dad and his mistress get out of the car, but they saw the lights on and then turned off. They planned just to scope it out and collect evidence, but eventually decided to confront him. My mom tried calling him, and he blocked her. Then I tried calling 33 times, and he didn't pick up. It's 2 a.m., and my mom calls his sister and explains the situation. His sister tries calling. I call him again, and he texts me that he's sleeping in the car and wants to be left alone. I got my uncle to send me a picture of my father's car, license plate, and the apartment complex in the background. I sent it to him and told him that I didn't see him in the car. I told him to come outside to the car. It's 45 minutes later, and he comes to the car. My mom is waiting for him in the car. My father insulted her by calling her profanities, saying how she has no job and is very lazy when my father forced her to quit her job when they got married for religious reasons. And he tells her to shut up and sit down. She gets her stuff out of the car, and his mistress calls the cops. The cops drive around and leave the complex. My family hops in my aunt's car and races home to try and beat my dad to our house. My mom arrives first, and my sister is confused and asks what is going on. My mom explains everything to my sister, and my sister is hysterical. My dad comes through the door, and my sister starts screaming at the top of her lungs at him. He goes upstairs, gets his things out of his room, and insults my mom once again. My mom gets his things, throws them in the yard, and shoves him out the door. He's finally gone. I have no tears left to cry for my father. It's the next day, and I'm at work. I see him drive on Life 360 to Creekside Park, the Woodlands Mall, Ulta Beauty, Marble Slab, and a liquor store. I'm at work, and my grandma meets my dad at the apartment complex. He explains what happened and lies to her face about it. They both head to our house, and my father sits on our couch to explain what happened. My mom, sister, aunt, uncle, and grandma are here. My uncle goes upstairs with my little brother to watch TV so he won't hear what is happening. My sister asks him questions about his mistress, and he declines to answer her questions. Chloe asks him if his mistress knows that he is married, and he says yes, but lies and says that he told her that he's divorcing my mom. The divorce hasn't even been filed yet, and they aren't even separated. He explains that he wanted to think ahead and wanted a place to stay whenever they filed for divorce, and he wanted to look for a relationship when they got a divorce. He admits to lying about working at night and sleeping in the car and that he's been spending most nights at his mistress's apartment. He met her through the boxing community on YouTube. He claims that their relationship was strictly platonic for 9 months, but they've been dating for a month. He says that he never took her anywhere or spent money on her, even though we tracked him and saw him take her shopping, and we know that he has spent money on her. My father complains about how my mom hasn't touched him in 3.5 years, how my mom is obligated to sleep with him, how he's being held hostage in his marriage, and says that he had no choice but to cheat. He went upstairs with my little brother to get the rest of his things but left his phone on the living room couch. His phone rings several times, and the contact says Courtney J. My aunt answers the phone and pretends to be my mom. His mistress screams and tells her to come outside. My aunt looks outside, and no one is there. His mistress says she is coming to our house and says our address. My father gets his things and leaves. My aunt and uncle eventually leave because my aunt's husband is in the hospital. My grandma spends the night. It's 1 a.m., and everyone is awake and discussing what just happened. We hear the loud pounding on the door. It's my father's mistress. My grandma yells through the door asking who it is, and his mistress says, "You know who it is, come outside, bitch." His mistress starts trying to break our window and says, "I'm going to kill you." My heart is pounding out of my chest, and everyone is yelling. I immediately call 911, and my mom and grandma do the same. The police are on their way, and my father arrives and pounds on the door, telling us to let them in. We let them know that the police are on their way, and both of them leave. 6 police cars arrive 1 minute after they leave. The policemen question us, and we explain the situation. I give them my father's location via Life 360. 3 police cars leave him and stop him a street over. They arrest and question him. The passenger door of my father's car was open when they arrived. The police tell us that the only thing we can do is get a restraining order and change the locks. There are no criminal charges against his mistress since my father allowed her to be on our property. My mom is hysterical, and I comfort her. The police leave, and we go back inside our house. I hate my father. It's 2 a.m., the morning of Father's Day. My father calls my mom after the police leave, yells at her for calling the police, and blames her for his arrest. They argue back and forth on the phone for a while, and my sister joins in. We hear his mistress yell at us through the phone. She is in the car with him. We hang up the phone. I check where they're heading via Life 360, and they go back to her apartment and stay the night. My mom, sister, and I clean out his room and throw away the remains of his things and keep the things we want to sell. I didn't go to sleep until 7 a.m. that morning. I wake up and go to work at 9. It's Father's Day, and I'm hosting a Father's Day brunch at work. I put on a smile and act normal. I can't even process what happened that morning. I get off of work and head home. My mom's side of the family is over and cooking dinner for Father's Day. My old phone goes dead, and I order a GPS tracker for my father's car. My sister, cousin, grandma, and I go to the grocery store to pick up a few things. We get home with the groceries, and the rest of my family arrives. My father walks in right after them, acting like everything is normal. Everyone starts arguing, and my father gets his clothes from his room and leaves because he refuses to be disrespected. My sister, uncle, cousin, and I play pickleball to blow off steam. We come back, and dinner is ready. We pray and eat. For the first time in a while, I'm sad. I was supposed to spend Father's Day as a happy family, eating brunch at the country club. I miss what this day could have been. I text my father Happy Father's Day out of sadness and anger. Everyone leaves, and I'm alone in my room with my thoughts. The next day, I requested $150 from my father on Cash App, and he sent me the money out of guilt. No amount of money will make up for the family he destroyed. I used the money to buy a membership for the tracker. Over the next 3 days, we found out her full name, the car she drives, her address, social media, and her occupation. Her name is Amira. It's Friday, and my grandma, mom, sister, brother, and I are going to Texas Roadhouse. My father texts me. We get into a huge argument, and he tries to gaslight and insult me, but I already know his tactics. He tells me that he's still friends with Amira but not dating. And he keeps lying to my face. It's Sunday, and my grandma and aunt are over. I FaceTimed with my father, and he's in Clear Lake. He tells me that he's just going to look at the water and think about things. I believe him, and we eventually hang up. But I can't shake the feeling that something is off. I checked Amira's YouTube, and she's at Kima Boardwalk in Clear Lake, the place I begged my father to take me, the place where he proposed to my mom. They are there together. Once again, he lied to my face. 2 days later, she posted a cooking video, and my father commented that it was the best meal he's had. He doesn't live with her anymore but still spends the night at her house and goes on dates with her. Once again, he lied to my face. I looked through the rest of her comments and found out that he bet on boxing and won $1,000, kept it from us, and spent it all on her. I had enough of his lies. I told him that if he didn't make contact with her, he would not see me. My mom was right, he chose her. It's the 2nd of July, and I haven't seen him in over 2 weeks other than FaceTime. Once again, I hate my father. Bye and see you again in the next videos and stories.